Welcome to our presentation, Building an Online Learning Community based on the 7 Principles for Good Practice. This presentation is offered by Karen, Hanif, Kenneth, and Pamela. This presentation has 3 separate parts. In part 1, we are comparing good practice in campus-based versus online classrooms. In part 2, we will list the instructional strategies that we could use for each of the 7 principles. And finally, in part 3, we will list our top 3 strategies for good practice in an online classroom. Principle 1 is good practice encourages student-faculty contact. In a campus-based classroom, we might begin the semester with an icebreaker. We would build trust by providing opportunities to get to know each other. And finally, we would provide clear guidelines for communication policies to students. Transferring those strategies to an online classroom, we could use this human scavenger hunt icebreaker, which helps students get to know more about each other and assists in creating a relaxed online classroom environment built on trust and respect for all so that learning can be enhanced. A second strategy for the online classroom is policies concerning communication with the students and among the students should be clearly delineated in the professor's introduction as well as the syllabus. It is probably best repeated in other workspaces in the learning management system as well. And finally, the professor should provide a self-introduction to connect to the students. This introduction should present the professor as professional as well as approachable, delineating more information than name, phone, and office. This self-introduction should be a way to build trust in the online classroom. Principle 2 states, good practice encourages cooperation among students. In a campus-based classroom, strategies could include creating activities and assignments that foster a sense of community among the students, such as student web pages, peer activity to find out about each other's hobbies, interests, and academic background. The second strategy can include group projects and assignments as part of a course. The third strategy might be to develop performance criteria to students so that students can evaluate each other's work. In an online classroom, Pamela includes 1 pair and 1 group project on her syllabus, 1 before the midterm and 1 towards the end, to facilitate collaborative learning and peer-to-peer consultation. She finds this is a good way to get a look at your peers' writing and help each other make improvements. The performance criteria is a rubric provided ahead of time. Principle 3 states, good practice encourages active learning. In a campus-based classroom, the professor can allow students to present their work to their peers and then allow for peer feedback. Second, the professor can allow students to challenge the professor, authors, theorists, and/or their peers on certain topics. Finally, the professor can encourage students to suggest readings, viewings, strategies, activities, and even assignments. When transferred to an online classroom, the professor can use the 1-5-3-1 model. In this model, 1, provide a 1-minute introduction to or overview of the topic and how it aligns with learning objectives and other course materials or topics. The professor tells the students why this information is essential and how they will use it in their module and/or course. 5, Focus on up to 5 subtopics that support the main topic and spend about 1 minute on each subtopic. You can always record more than one video if you have more than 5 subtopics. 1. Give students a chance to recall or reflect on new information shared in the video. You can use simple knowledge check questions or ask students to write a short, reflective response. And finally, 3. Pull it all together in the last 3 minutes by reflecting on how the video ties into the rest of the module or course. Remind students why this is essential information and why it will help them succeed in the course. A second strategy in the online classroom to encourage active learning might be active review sessions such as games or simulations. The professor poses questions or problems during the lecture and directs students to work on them independently or with an assigned small group. A third strategy is to use the symposium. Ask students to locate an article from a scholarly journal on an appropriate topic. After locating the article, students can create a mock news report, video presentation, or written analysis of the article for the online class. Peers can then respond by asking questions and furthering the discussion. Principle 4 states, good practice gives prompt feedback. In a campus-based classroom, you can give an earliest acknowledgement feedback to students when receiving students' electronic submissions. You can give timely informational feedback on assignments and projects, and you can provide evaluative feedback at the conclusion of a discussion topic. These strategies transferred to online. Pamela assigns pieces of an assignment at a time, especially in the beginning for those new to online learning, and aims to provide feedback within 2 to 3 days. This is especially important if it is regarding a skill she requires them to sharpen prior to the next submission or assignment, such as brainstorming, outline, rough draft, final draft. Many of Pamela's assignments are already located online, so she can actually grade them wherever she is, allowing her to stick to her 72-hour time frame, thus compelling students to keep working on the next step as to not fall behind. There are no gaps. Principle 5 states, good practice emphasizes time on task. In a campus-based classroom, this means allocating realistic amounts of time, having realistic expectations, regularly distributing deadlines for projects and assignments, and finally using technology that is relevant and useful to the topic. Transferring these strategies to an online classroom, after identifying key concepts and how those will be taught, Hanif decides what realistically can be covered. Cramming the curriculum into a short period of time doesn't work for long-term learning. Both traditional and online courses need deadlines. Because virtual students need to manage time effectively in order to complete an online course successfully, providing structure in the form of posting and assignment deadlines helps them to get through the course without getting stalled or lost along the way. Hanif also posts helpful instructional videos. Holding online office hours are great technological means to use the time efficiently. Principle 6 states, good practice communicates high expectations. In a campus-based classroom, the professor can share with the class an example of exemplary work previously submitted by a student. The professor can also provide clear objectives and give detailed information of the expectation for each objective. The professor can tell the students that more information given on assigned work will result in higher grades. And finally, the professor can discuss with the class that expectations are higher in an online class since students are required to be more independent. Transferring these strategies to online, Ken assigns a group project to be completed by the students. He informs the students they need to spend quality time on the group project and they will need to communicate frequently with their discussion groups. They ought to present a first draft and should continuously communicate with their instructor on making improvements until the final project is submitted. Principle 7 states, good practice respects diverse talents and ways of learning. In the campus-based classroom, the professor can provide extra material or activities for students who lack essential background knowledge or skills. The professor can integrate visual, audio, and kinesthetic learning strategies effectively and productively. And finally, the professor can use collaborative teaching and learning techniques and pair students so they complement each other's abilities. Transferring these strategies to online classroom, Hanif is flexible and tries not to implement one-size-fits-all solutions. She allows students to choose their own project topics as it allows diverse views to emerge. Collaborative learning activities are great means for the students because they let the students employ their preferred learning styles while also developing less preferred styles. Since not all the students are comfortable with a certain type of communication, Hanif offers assistance via different channels, such as email, phone call, virtual office hour, and consulting with her and the classmates in the class forum. She finds these are great ways to meet students' distinct abilities and learning styles. In part 2 of this presentation, we list instructional strategies for each of the 7 principles for good practice. For Principle 1, we've listed the human scavenger hunt icebreaker. Principle 2, pair and group projects rubrics. Principle 3, symposium. Principle 4, timeline for feedback on assignments. Principle 5, regularly distributed deadlines. Principle 6, independence requiring greater expectations. And finally, Principle 7, pairing students in collaborative activities so they complement each other's abilities. In part 3 of this presentation, we list our top 3 strategies from all of the strategies previously presented. Our top 3 strategies are 1, the human scavenger hunt icebreaker, 2, a timeline for feedback on assignments, and 3, pairing students in collaborative activities so they complement each other's abilities. Pamela, Kenneth, Hanif, and Karen, thank you for viewing this presentation on the 7 principles for good practice. Enjoy the rest of your summer.